Welcome to Service Desk.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Kim.
And we're your techie friends.
How are you today, Andrew?
I'm doing all right. Kind of getting all nice and rested after a lot of travel and catching up on work.
Oh, I bet that was fun. Where'd you go?
I headed up to Canada last weekend, so what better way to spend Memorial Day than leaving the country and going somewhere else, I suppose.
We celebrate you veterans by not being here.
But no, it was fun. It did some hiking and just kind of enjoying Winnipeg. So
very cool.
What were you up to?
Well, my son's in Boy Scouts, so he had, they do a cemetery tour where the Boy Scouts and the VFW march in with the flags.
Okay.
So they march in with their flags and they do the color guard thing. He doesn't particularly like it, and it was super hot. But it turned out well, and everybody seems to enjoy having kids along with the elders, so that's nice.
That seems pretty cool, at least. Maybe a good learning opportunity on just, the culture and all the different things why Memorial Day is special.
Exactly.
It's a good thing for kids to learn.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just like, you're at the beach. Woo!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, for tech news, it's actually kind of been a little slow lately. There's been some big things. Couple routers have been flagged by the FBI as possibly risk propagating some malware.
Oh.
Really small section, though. We're talking 10 or so models.
That's interesting. What brand?
Kind of across the board. I think there were some Linksys and Cisco.
Was it just due to the software installed on them, or?
Yeah, I think it was bad firmware or something. They were warning people to 100% restart the routers and then do a firmware update.
Huh.
So just another reason to go ahead and always check, especially for things like a router,
right,
is to regularly, maybe once a month, log into it and see if you have any firmware that needs to be updated.
Can't say I'd do that.
That's important to do. The big one, though, that I think is a little more wide-reaching, and a lot of people, I would say everybody that listens to any podcast, will see that you've been getting a lot of privacy policy changes that have been coming through your email.
Oh, yes. Everything I have a password for basically sent me, we've updated our privacy.
Right.
Blah, 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 blah.
And my favorite thing is email chains and websites that I never signed up for in the first place that I've been trying to get out of.
Oh, yeah.
And unsubscribe from. They've been sending me policy updates, and it's like, no, I don't want an update. I just never want to see you again.
Just go away.
But anyways, there was a big EU ruling recently. Well, I don't know if it was EU. I think it was the UK. And basically any company that does business over there has to have certain guidelines and rules that they have to follow now. Things like the right to be forgotten, certain things like that. But a lot of big changes. So pretty much any company that has a person that lives in that country had to change their policies. And that's pretty much every country or every industry and website on the internet. So even if you are an American, Brazil, Australian, you got those emails because you were part of a company that does deals in the UK.
It is the EU in general, yeah.
The EU?
And
okay.
It's called the General Data Protection Regulation. Not that you care, but...
Well, it's been, I've heard a lot of people talking about it, and they're like, what's going on here? And it's kind of an interesting thing nowadays where, as a tech company or an internet company, you can't just make one set of rules for one set of users because you're a global company just by default if you're on the internet.
Yes. And it's really interesting because EU has had stricter privacy everything for a long time. And if you ever go to a site and it pops up at the bottom saying, we have cookies, click here to accept, that's from those guys. They were the ones who instituted saying, hey, you shouldn't just be able to put stuff on my computer without me knowing that it exists.
I noticed that when I visited Europe, more so last year, when every single website I went onto when I was in the country had that. And then I got back to the States and I started noticing that pop up even more.
And it's partially because of this GDPR regulation that that's getting to be even more widespread. I personally prefer, we'll get into the basics. Currently in the United States, it's called an opt-out. So if you just go to a website, you automatically get the cookies or what have you. And usually somewhere buried in the fine print, there's a way to say, I don't want that. And you have to opt out of everything. And that applies to end user license agreements and things like that too. But with this GDPR regulation coming about, it is so widespread across the EU, and all of these people are getting together that basically we're kind of being covered by them, even though the United States isn't putting together the necessary legislation to make it happen for us, to have our privacy protected. So that's why you're getting the updates,
Exactly.
which are annoying and nobody ever reads. But opting in is a much better way to go about being protected. Most people just hit accept anyway, but I appreciate having the option personally.
Yeah, it's nice to have that question asked of you. And one of the cool things, I signed up for a few different, to get onto the Wi-Fi over there, I'd have to,
Sure.
Sign up for something. And I'm starting to get emails saying, via policy, if we don't hear from you or have any interaction from you, we have to remove you from our email contact list.
Woohoo!
And I wish American companies would start doing that, because that's been amazing, where I don't even have to have any sort of action on my part. Things just stop coming to me.
We can't even get net neutrality passed. I can't imagine getting that through Congress. We won't get into politics right now.
So what's our topic here for today?
So last time we talked about the insides of your computer, the CPU, motherboard, etc. And we stopped short of getting into some of the external pieces. So we're going to dive into what else makes a computer beyond the insides. In the external area, if you have a laptop, you obviously have all this built in. You have a keyboard, usually there's a trackpad, and you have a screen and speakers. And that's pretty much all you need for basic computing.
Everything's kind of bundled together in a little package, kind of like we were talking about with the internals sometimes. Your graphics card and your sound card are on your motherboard oftentimes.
Very handy. But if you're getting a desktop, a lot of times, I know, especially Dell, just auto ships basically a keyboard and mouse regardless. But then if you're getting into other kinds of gaming, or you want a specific kind of keyboard layout or what have you, it is helpful to be able to order your own. Some people like a wireless keyboard because location is key.
Yes. And you don't sometimes, if you have a mouse and you do a lot of work, you can just take it and move it around your desk, or you don't have that wire dragging it down.
And there's a few different ways you can do wireless keyboards and mice. The most common, especially with a desktop situation, would be to have a little teeny tiny dongle that plugs into a USB port. Like your keyboard and mouse, if you have a wired version, it's all USB. So now you can have these little dongles, and I personally have one that is a keyboard mouse combo that I plug in and I can use.
Yeah, so you just need the one.
Because I don't have a lot of USB ports on my laptop. So that's the basics.
True. And oftentimes you'll see, if you have a wired or wireless mouse, if you are someone that needs, high responsiveness, like a gamer, you may find better quality when it comes to a wired mouse. It doesn't always necessarily mean the fact. There are more expensive mice that you can get that you probably can't tell the difference. But some people do, want to have the wired because it just releases the headache from having to worry about lag time and also the batteries.
It was really funny. Actually, I'm building a Linux box, and the wireless mouse I wanted to use wasn't working, so I swapped my son's wired mouse and basically traded. And he did not like how slow his game was with that really cheap wireless mouse.
Oh, you're such a mean parent.
I am. And I wouldn't trade him back because it doesn't work otherwise.
Sort of along the same lines here now, going forward from this, is when it comes to the speakers and the headset. Oftentimes, if you have a desktop computer, you're going to have just a set of 2 speakers, maybe a sub for the bass. that you would plug in. Most of the time, those are always going to be plugged in with the cable. They're kind of just set and forget. Most people probably set it to a certain volume and then change the volume with their, computer, the little speaker icon in the lower right. But your other option that you have, which introduces a little more options out there for you, is the headset or just headphones. And this kind of comes in the same line of things where they often come in two different types, which is wired and wireless. These are a little more, I would say, forgiving when it comes to the wireless. If you get a good brand, you don't have to worry about things like interference, unless you're standing maybe next to a microwave. I've seen some of my friends have used wireless headsets, and whenever they go next to a microwave, it starts freaking out on them. Other than that, though, I would say if you have the money to pony up for it, and you don't mind having to charge your headset every night or during certain periods, a wireless headset is really useful because you can kind of get up, walk around. If you want to listen to music, maybe sit on your couch, chair, bed, and not have to bother someone else in the building.
One of my favorite things about a wireless headset is I tend to forget what I'm doing, or like if I have headphones in or something. And so sometimes I'll just like stand up really quickly and then almost choke myself, or like have them pulled out of my ears because the wire is not long enough for me to do whatever I tried to do.
Oh my. Yeah, that's definitely a bonus to having a wireless.
So yeah, if you're worried about choking yourself, wireless or headphones are great.
Let's see, another addition when it comes to plugging things into your computer. This is something that will pretty much be on every laptop and tablet nowadays, is going to be a webcam and a microphone.
Oh, yes.
If you buy it externally, chances are they're going to be bundled together. You can get them separately. I would say just for the ease of use, though, you probably don't need a stand-aside microphone unless you're doing things like podcasting that you're seriously into, or radio recording, maybe audio mixing.
Caveat, if you are doing things like playing games online or what have you, and you want to be able to like talk to other people, if you do have a built-in microphone with your webcam, make sure you have headphones before you try to use that, because there will be a terrible feedback loop and everybody on the call will hate you.
Exactly. But those are pretty nice. A lot of webcams nowadays, I used to scoff at this. Something to look out for, which is actually kind of a serious issue now, is that a lot of them will have little shutters that you can control. There is viruses and malware out there that will activate a webcam without you knowing about it.
Yes.
It wouldn't say it's a hugely threatening issue, but it's something to keep in mind when you're shopping. If not, just a sticky note I've often seen a lot of people do.
I have seen.
It's crazy.
My husband is one.
I was going to say, it's crazy how it's just, yeah, exactly. It's like people used to do it, and I thought it was like a tinfoil hat type thing.
Exactly.
and now it's like, I would totally do that as well.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's not required, but it's probably a good idea to try to cover that up if you at any time think that you might be spied upon, or like have your computer in a position where it would be really bad. I personally have my computer like stuck in a corner, so it's not as huge of a deal. But, if you're like, I think back to my dorm room days when I literally had the computer in the space I did everything. And like, oh dear,
Right.
If somebody had hacked that webcam, they would have gotten a nice show of all the things. I would have been a real big dork, and it probably wouldn't have been very entertaining.
But yeah, it's just something to watch out for. We kind of talked about this on the internal side of things as well. Can you kind of explain a little bit about the benefits, or if you have a hard drive that you're not going to plug into a computer, what kind of forms are you going to see if you buy them for the outside?
Oh, external hard drives. Most of the time, they look like a box, a little paperweight almost.
Kind of like a deck of cards, or
Yeah. And, well, it can be deck of cards. I've seen, like, my 4 terabyte one looks more like a sizable book, but they can be plugged in. Usually it's USB. Sometimes it's powered over that USB connection, And sometimes you have to have a separate cord to plug in the hard drive, depending on how much power it draws.
And usually, if you get one that plugs in with USB and powered over USB, you're not going to get the best performance, or as good of a performance if you get one that's powered just with an AC.
And that...
Plus, it ties up another spot on your computer.
But that connection, if you're just like saving the occasional file there, it's not a big deal. If you're trying to use it to run... Actually, does Windows even let you run hardware or software off of an external drive?
Yep, I run video games off of an external drive. Or no, I don't think I've done that. I don't know, to be honest with you.
I haven't tried in a long time.
I've never tried it. I think you can run software. I don't think you can put an operating system on it, although, well, you can put operating systems on flash drives. We're digging way down into this, but...
They don't care.
Mainly what you're going to use these external drives for are things like...
Storage.
Like TV, movies, documents, music, all your schoolwork, stuff like that.
Oh yes, that peanut butter and jelly speech. But I personally use my external hard drive kind of as the backup solution that we were talking about before. I smashed the...
That's a good way.
That's where I put all the pictures and the videos and things that I don't want to store on my local hard drive because I don't have enough space. And speed, most of the time, if you're just pulling over the occasional picture or you're doing like a big upload of pictures, it's not going to be a huge difference. But if you're working from it on a regular basis, you want to make sure you've got that AC adapter instead of having it powered over the USB.
Yep, exactly. And I don't know, kind of tying things up for things that most people would plug into their computer that's the more standard and often seen. Probably go into the printer and scanner world.
Oh.
And usually these are kind of tied together into one.
Anymore, yeah. MFP stands for Multi-Function Printer.
Oh, I never put that together.
Really?
It makes 100% sense. I've just always known what it was.
I'm teaching you things.
Exactly. The world of desktop printers and scanners is huge and complicated, but most of the time what you're probably going to get is DeskJet. Or, no.
An inkjet.
Inkjet is the one where you have the little ink cartridges that you go out and buy that probably costs more than the printer itself.
Yeah.
And if you ever get one of those and you have something goes wrong with the printer,
throw it away and get a new one.
You bought it for $50. Chances are it's not going to be worth buying or, getting it repaired.
Nope.
Just go out shopping looking for a new one. If you get into serious printing and you're going to be doing a lot of page turnover and you need something that's going to have to put out pages consistently and fast, you're probably going to want to look away from an inkjet and go more into DeskJet, which is more toner cartridges, where you kind of run into the opposite situation where the printer is more expensive because you are paying for better quality, but also the toner is deceptively expensive. But the thing a lot of people don't realize is that you change it a lot less often.
Yeah. I think we've probably all been in the boat where you had to print something, and if you're on an inkjet at least, and then you don't have that magenta and your picture looks terrible and you don't have any extra. So the toner is super helpful for that. But yeah, I think between the inkjet I used to have, it was something like, I don't know, $60 to $90 for a cartridge, which is painful enough. But then the toner for the other printer I had once upon a time was at least $150. And yeah, that's no fun. Nobody likes to pay those kind of prices.
Exactly.
We could dive into the whole world of ink and how to refill and all that, but we're not going to go there.
With all of these different things that we're plugging into our computer too, something I would like to mention as well is a lot of the times, especially if you have a laptop and fair amount of times with a desktop, especially in a consumer grade, you're probably going to run out of a spot at some point. So some certain options for you are things called USB hubs. They're pretty handy. If you get one that splits one USB into 3 or 4, that's a great option for things like keyboards, mice, other low power things.
Yes.
probably always want to, unless it's a powered USB port, and for the most part, just as a good rule of thumb, plug anything like an external monitor that goes over USB or a backup solution like a hard drive into its own dedicated USB port.
Yeah.
But if you are looking to kind of get more USB ports, because you have all these different devices, things like a printer, mice, keyboard, those are usually pretty good to be able to plug into a USB port. Or USB hub, which gives you kind of a expansion slot.
Yes, super handy, especially if you go lower end, especially with the desktop. They often will chimp on things like how many USB ports there are. And that's another thing to consider while you're shopping is, do I want to get an extender? Do I want to make sure I have that many USB ports, etc., etc.
And the one last thing to cover on, I suppose, and
kind of the biggest
the one that I was going to say, the thing that a lot of people are going to probably confuse whenever you talk about a computer is the monitor.
Yep. So monitors are wide range depending on what kind of monitor you have, what kind of cords you connect the monitor to the computer with, and what kind of video graphics you have. All of these things affect how your monitor will actually display whatever you have on your computer.
And they're very use dependent.
Yes.
So depending on what you're going to be using it for, you're definitely going to be looking for certain special ones.
Right. So, for instance, if you're just getting on looking at Facebook, YouTube, but you really like your YouTube videos to look nice, it's going to be different than if you literally just use it for Word documents. And if you're a gamer, oh boy.
At a certain point, once you know that you're going to be a little more of a power user, you're going to want to be looking into things like the resolution, what the max one it can have. Nowadays, if you can afford it, they're not too expensive. I would probably say try and get a 4K. Yeah. That's going to be kind of the standard entry level, or not entry level, but
that's not entry. No,
it's kind of the standard like 1080 that used to be.
It's bumped up to 4K. If you're looking to have a nice looking video or video game experience, 4K would kind of be your target for starters. They go higher than that now. But one thing to consider is whatever your graphics card is and what the outputs from your computer are. So if you on your computer only have like a DVI-D or a DisplayPort or a VGA, you can go look all these up. They're just names for the different kinds of connectors. You don't want to go with a 4K because you are not going to see that quality over those cords.
Most monitors you do get nowadays, thankfully, are pretty much going to come with HDMI as an option. They may have something like DisplayPort.
Okay, I have to go off. Oh. So, I bought a monitor. The monitor had a cord for VGA, DVI-D, HDMI to mini HDMI, and one that was HDMI to DVI-D. There was no HDMI to HDMI. What the heck, monitor companies? Come on.
That's kind of insane. That's like your standard garden variety.
And that was every monitor we bought. Ugh. Okay, sorry. Rant done.
No. And it's kind of funny too. The one that's probably the most popular outside of HDMI nowadays is your VGA.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
I would strongly recommend not using that if you can. No. It does its job, but it's one of the oldest ones. I think it's been around since like the 80s as a connection standard. It's people have been trying to get rid of it for so long, but businesses and companies have so many monitors out there that it's just, you would be shooting yourself in the foot as a manufacturer, especially when it comes to plugging into like projectors and meeting room presentation podiums. So many laptops are going to have VGA nowadays. Thankfully, I think we're starting to get to the point, because we're getting thinner and thinner laptops, you're going to probably just see HDMI.
Yes.
But yeah, for the most part, if you're wondering what you have, look up pictures of the different connections. VGA is usually a little blue one, but that doesn't always...
It's not always blue, yeah.
It's not always the case.
Yeah.
But it is like kind of a rhombus, I think is the word.
Hey, yeah. No, trapezoid. It's a trapezoid.
Trapezoid, yeah. Whereas HDMI is like a thinner trapezoid.
Kind of with squiggly sides.
Yeah.
It's not a straight line. Anyway, look it up. I can't show pictures on a podcast.
Look for VGA, look for HDMI. And if you have the choice only between VGA and DVI, go for DVI.
Yeah. There are also a lot of times on laptops, especially, mini display ports or Macs have the Thunderbolt, or is that what they call them? Thunderbolt?
I think so, something like that.
Okay. So the Thunderbolt and the mini there's mini HDMI as well. So mini DisplayPort, mini HDMI, and Thunderbolt are all different connections that you can use to connect your monitor. So basically, look at your computer, whether it's a desktop or a laptop, and make sure that you either A, get the cord to connect whatever monitor you happen to have to it, or B, get a monitor that has a port that is compatible with whatever is coming out of your computer. And thankfully, no matter what, you can find a connector or an adapter to go from anything you need to anything else you need. Just have to make sure you understand what male and female mean when ordering those.
Exactly. That was a lot of info there.
That was. Sorry. Info dump.
No. It's all good stuff. The skinny of it is err on the side of HDMI. Your computer probably has it, but look up pictures ahead of time before you buy.
Yes. And it always helps to actually look at what's on your computer and not just go, oh, I think maybe, just look. It saves a lot of time and headache and money a lot of times.
And on that side of things, we would like you to look at our website, which is servicedeskpodcast.com.
Yes, please. And come over to the Twitterverse and chat with us at Service Desk Pod.
And definitely take a look at our Facebook. Kim does a great job, usually, of posting things every once in a while to both Twitter and Facebook. You can find us on Facebook at Service Desk Podcast, and you can drop us a line with our email, servicedeskpodcast@gmail.com.
We like getting mail.
Exactly. And wherever you are listening to us on your podcast apps or iTunes, please rate and review. Maybe, leave a comment. It does help people find us.
Indeed, it does.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Kim.
And we're your techie friends.